So can you share with us to get us started I should say all the things you're doing now, but the things you're doing now, Ritnika?
Well, currently I am the managing director of Downtown India. That's one of my main jobs. Downtown India is basically Downtown Music, which has CD Baby, Fuga, Downtown Music Services, Songtrust, Found, neighboring rights, a bunch of other stuff. And besides that, I have my own company called Music Gets Me High. And under my own company, I teach music business along with the university. I have a rehearsal studio. I do large scale music festivals, which are hopefully coming back. Besides that, yeah, I just teach. I do a lot of workshops and I've written a book and all that fun stuff.
Now, are you a musician yourself?
I used to be. I used to play the drums in a band and I used to sing, and now I just play the ukulele at home for my dog.
What ukulele? Or soprano uke or
I'm actually I'm using I switch. I actually have all three, and I kind of go between the soprano as well as the tenor. So it just depends on the what I'm in the mood for.
there's baritone ukes.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a
That's,
baritone. I have a concert. I have a see. That's
I like the
become my
concert.
instrument of choice.
Yeah, I like the concert one. Normally is what I use mostly, but then it depends on sometimes on the beach. I'll take the soprano.
So, and you also have wellness work you do?
Yes, I went through some personal things, and in order to help myself, I started getting into like wellness and healing and energy work, and I started like learning. So I have two sides of it. I learned how to do, I'm a Reiki master. I learned Native American shamanic healing, and then I also am a certified life coach and neuro linguistic programmer and EFT, and I just started doing all of
You
that for
filled the
myself.
well.
Yeah.
You filled the
And
well
then
with all these great things.
yeah, and then I started helping. Before I started downtown, I was just doing that and my other music work, and then I started teaching, and I stopped doing the therapy work. But I feel like I combine the teaching with the therapy because, like, all my students are like doing like one-on-one counseling about life with me, and I'm like, sure, it works.
Bring it on. Have it all come into the fold. And where
Exactly.
in India are you?
So I'm actually from New Delhi, but for the past few years, I've been living in Goa because everything is online. So I'm living by the beach with my dog.
And you, though, for downtown music, cover all of India.
Yes,
Okay.
and all their companies.
In all the companies. So what does that then mean? Are you then a businesswoman connecting things together and making systems work? Are you artist relations? Because you've done a lot of artist relations work.
I basically at the moment do anything and everything needed. So whether it is business strategy, whether it's development, whether it's working out, getting new DSP deals, whether it's client servicing, whether it's promotion of our brands and marketing, whether it's doing all the educational workshops. Right now, I'm doing everything and anything that is needed.
So let me back you up then. So I know that college, I should say that undergrad for you was Hofstra.
Yes.
What was the young you like? Were you in a band then? Were
So
you
so it's really
how
funny.
creative were you?
I was all like I was a horrible student growing up, like in high school. I don't even know how I got into college because I was into theater, so I used to do musical theaters in India, and I used to play in a band. So I was, one of those kids that were like always like out for like play practice or in a band or like I had to sing in. I was in a Catholic school, and I had to sing in the choir because that was the only way we would be allowed to have a school band and play rock and roll. So I used to do all of that, and because I loved musicals so much, I wanted to be on Broadway. That's the reason I applied in New York, and because of my grades, I
Ah,
could only get into Hofstra, and I was like, all right, I'll go there for a year, and then I'll switch to NYU. These were the plans, and but 9/11 happened my first week of college.
wow.
So it was safer to stay in Long Island, at least in my head. And I started loving the college, and I had really good friends. And while I was in college, I studied film and audio production. So because thinking film had more money than theater, the Indian mentality. Not that it's true.
I'm a film school grad myself, and
There
my
you
parents somehow thought, she got into film school, that everything will happen. It's like, well, no, that is not how this dance goes.
Exactly. And while I was at Hofstra, I got to join the concert organizing committee, and that's actually how I got into the business side of things. So for
So how
four
did
years,
you get to join
so it was a club. It was a club on campus, and
so
the
someone
first
tapped you on the shoulder and said, hey, we're hanging out together, putting on concerts. Would you like to come play?
Well, I mean, because I was an international student, one of the first things I did was to check out all the clubs on campus where I could meet people, right? Because you're alone in a different country. And then I saw this thing called Hofstra Concerts. So they had that open meeting. And the first year, I was just part of the general crew. And the first concert I got to organize was Counting Crows. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening? Is this a
So,
world?
so what
Do you
was
do
that?
this?
This was in, what year was this in?
2001.
So what was this like then for a young international student to say, here, you're going to work on the Counting Crows concert? What was
It
the
was it was ridiculous. I had no idea that something like that even existed. I mean, I used to play in a band and all, but it was very small. And at that time, before I left, India had no music festivals. They had like smallish shows and stuff, but they didn't have large scale multi-stage festivals. And after the first year, they had an editorial board of where you get nominated. So for the next 3 years, I was the ticketing chair for the things. I was very much involved with the executive board and very hands on. And after that, we got to organize like Nickelback and Maroon 5. And it was just like, even though I was studying film, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of what I want to do for the rest of my life. So it all started there, to be fair.
So you graduated at Hofstra, and then how did you say, okay, I'm inspired, I have this film degree, I'm from India. Were you then thinking, I'm now going to do magic with film festivals? What was your
Oh,
lens at the
no.
time?
So every summer when I came back to India, I worked in television or film. Like I worked, on a TV show for the summer, and so I was always working. Even when I was in college, I interned at MTV in New York. So I was very film, TV, whatever. But when I came, I didn't want to stay. I could stay in the US for a year, but I wanted to come back and do my own thing. So I came back to India, and then I realized I'm not a big fan of Bollywood in general. I don't really watch Bollywood films, and my Hindi is not exactly very good. So I'm like, okay, that was a very stupid move because you're back in India and you have to work in Bollywood. So I worked on a couple of international films that were being shot in India. It was fine, but I worked on one Bollywood film. It's just I miss music too much. So I got to work on a concert through a friend while I was here, and I really really missed it. So somehow I found myself a master's course in London for music business. Somehow managed to convince my parents to send me to do that.
Well, what did your parents think of all this? So here we have a daughter who's, I'm going to do film school. And then she goes outside of India to go to film school and comes back and go, no, that wasn't it. Let me now go to yet another university outside of India to go pursue music business.
Well, I mean, to be fair, none of these courses are taught in India. In fact, music business, my course, which I currently run, is the only standalone music business course in the country, and it's been 14, 15 years since I graduated. So it's there was no other option of doing something like that. I'm very grateful that my parents are very supportive. Like they were in the fashion industry, so they were already in an artistic field, and my brother and I both did not take over the family business because we wanted to do our own thing. So, my
Mm.
parents knew we were the kind who would, and I mean, they saw I was like always into music. They would be very surprised if I became like a doctor or something at the end. But yeah, they were very, I'm very lucky to have that kind of support to be able to pay for all of that and, not worry about loans and things like that. So, yeah, so I went to London and I worked there as a promoter while I was doing my master's and, stuff like that. It was good fun.
So you've had the opportunity to kind of spread your wings with family support, but also to change direction as a new beacon came in. So, what did music? I tend to despite teaching music business for 12 years myself at UCLA, I tend to be a little bit of a grad school in music business. What was that in terms of giving you a great foundation, and what were your ahas from doing
Yeah.
that?
I mean, what I liked, so I went to Westminster in London, and what I liked about it was, and I kind of based my current course a lot on that, is that it was very real world. Like the assignments are very real world. We had loads of guest lectures. We had people coming and talking from various parts of the industry. And back then, there weren't that many students in the course. Like I know now people who have graduated, where there are loads of students. Back then, it was like 15, 20 students. So it was a
Mm.
very tight knit group. And all our professors worked full time in the industry. So it wasn't just like, oh, book knowledge. And of course, being in a city like London, I was working as a promoter and I was doing shows at the Troubadour 100 Club. And then through the school, I got an internship with Peter Jenner, who, as you guys know, was Pink Floyd's original manager. So I was just like, oh my God.
So not
Like,
everybody who listens to this is a music person. Can you
yeah.
spend a second about what a promoter does?
So basically I worked with a company that used to organize shows at venues. So in the evenings, I would go and book the bands and run the show basically. And we used to have 4 bands playing per night, and then make sure everything's running smoothly, the sound, the light, the tech, making sure the artist gets paid, making sure the company gets paid, making sure I get paid, all of that. And then when I interned with Peter Jenner, he was in management at that time. So it was just basically, just working at his office and learning what he was doing and, chatting with him basically more than anything.
So at graduation, what was your adventure?
Well, once I graduated, I again wanted to come back to India. I don't know why I don't decide to live outside. It's always like I think it's also because I knew India wasn't developed, and I feel like with the knowledge and the experience I had already gained, even with Hofstra and things like that, I could do a lot more in my own country than anywhere else. So that was the whole point. And I came back to India, I started looking for jobs, and nobody would hire me because there was only labels, there were hardly any management companies, and I was overqualified. Like the like the owners were like, "You're more qualified than us. We can't hire you." So I had no choice, and I started my own company.
One thing that's come out of especially the work in Amplify Music, which you've been part of, which has been really great over the past couple of years, is really
Yeah.
understanding how different music and media areas are in different countries, and sometimes ferreting out the why of it. And for
Hmm.
India, Bollywood is so extensive. The fact that the music industry is not as granularly developed, supported,
Hmm.
policy supported, etc., always seems a bit
Yeah.
different to me. And without throwing anybody under the bus, um, why is the music business the way it is in India? Why is it much less
Well,
formalized?
Well, honestly, since I started like 15 years ago, like in India, there has been a huge difference. There's been a huge jump. We have, all international companies are here. People, there are loads of management company, loads of labels, loads of, multi-level, multi-stage festivals. So things have changed and grown a lot. Like, when I started, there was nobody. But the main reason is you have to understand India's music industry is what 95 or 90% film music. Whether it's Bollywood, whether it's regional, whether it's all the dialects. Every state has their own language. Every language has their own films, and every movie is a musical. So our music industry is actually our film industry. And how it works is the film industry has unfortunately been developed in such a way that artists work for hire. And the music that they make for the films, they get a flat fee. Even though a lot of laws have been changed, it doesn't always work the way it's supposed to. um, what ends up happening is the film producer owns the rights to the music, and he makes a deal with the label and either shares it or whatever it is. So when you say Bollywood's so developed, you're absolutely right, and so is the Bollywood music industry, because it's just the music comes, it goes to a label, the label has full control, everything is done. The problem arises for the independents in India. Anybody who's not film is considered independent. So that's where the problem arises, and that's what's been changing slowly and steadily. But it's only 5 to 7% of the industry, so it's hard to kind of you know
So what's
push
the
for
role of,
drastic changes.
live music then? Because I would assume that for film music,
Huge.
it's recorded music. So,
Well, the thing is, live music in general is a big way for artists in India to make money because streaming and stuff doesn't pay much, and radio incomes and stuff don't come. The Bollywood guys, even though they may not own copyright, they do have the right to perform their own music. So they actually charge loads of money just to perform the songs that they have sung in the film, and that's where they make a lot of their money.
ah, so then,
So live is actually very important. So if you want to gauge how big an artist is in India, just looking at streaming numbers is not going to give you an indication. If you look at how many live shows and how much they charge per show, depending if it's a college, a public, or a private show, some artists it starts 50, $60,000 just for a show, and just to sing the film songs that they don't have the copyright to technically.
and then I'm assuming then the film owner can get the performance royalties for the song.
If he wants to. Yeah, I don't. That's a whole different business that doesn't really work as smoothly. Nobody collects set lists in India at the moment. I'm hoping and praying that will change. Very rarely do they ask, like a couple of bigger festivals, especially if there's an international artist playing, they'll ask us to submit a set list. But that hasn't started much. So I guess if they wanted to, they could.
So you've stood in the live performance space doing festivals as well as now in the recorded music space.
Hmm.
What have you seen then happening in the live music space in your world and the work you've done in the past 15 years?
Sorry, when have I seen
Live music
the
changing, because you've then been
the
part
live?
of one of the largest festivals there.
Yeah. So I mean, it's evolved so much. Like I was part of East Wind, which was the first multi-stage indie music festival that happened in India, and the person who was organizing it was totally snowed in. His sponsor pulled out the last minute, and he went bankrupt. And I remember 2 days before the festival, every single one working in the industry was called. None of us got paid. We all just did it because we had to help each other out. The very different vibe, putting it together. And somehow we managed to pull it off, even though we were different competing companies. But everybody was calling everyone, like, we need help. We need to run the stage. We need to figure this out. But it's opened the doors to a lot more. And there was a time, I'm going to say about 7, 8 years ago, when live music was, I would say, at the peak. Like I used to manage bands, and a venue outside say Delhi, if you were going from Delhi to Mumbai or wherever, they would pay a proper fee, like a really good fee for a decent sized indie band. They would pay for travel, they would pay for stay, they would pay for food, backline, the works. Now you'll be lucky. I know COVID has been a damper, but even pre-COVID, and what's changed is electronic artists and DJs are doing better. Singer-songwriters are still getting shows, but bands aren't getting club shows as much because the trend in music has changed. So I've seen it go from bands having no place to perform to having large, big festivals to having crazy amounts of support from venues to be like, okay, I'll book like a singer songwriter or a DJ because it's cheaper, or a DJ will make you dance and hence you'll sell more alcohol, you know.
So
So
has
yeah.
the business itself though gotten larger or more spread out or more festivals or
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot more festivals, but the thing with India is that except for a few bigger ones, festivals come, festivals go. The ones that last more than 2, 3 years are the ones we would actually count as substantial because you'll see I've worked on various one-time festivals like because it just happens once and they don't have the funds to do it again. So, but as a whole, the industry is definitely growing. There are more players coming in, the bigger international players coming in. There's more opportunity for people to consider a career in music in different avenues. So that's definitely growing and changing, and it's been a huge difference since when I started to now. Like, now people can actually be like, okay, I want to work in music, and the Indian parents are not going to be like, really. They might be a little really, but not too bad. Like it's still not considered a good enough career, but still.
so how did you decide to teach?
So it was like a very simple steady progress. I used to get asked the same questions from artists over and over again. So I started writing down the topics that should be addressed, because there was no book on Indian music. Like, how things work in India is very different than how it works abroad. And there are books on the US system, the UK system, but there's nothing about the Indian way. So I just started, I don't know how it happened. I'm not a writer, but I ended up writing a book on basics of music business called Indie 101. And it was like, okay, this is how stuff happens abroad and this is how things happen in India. So it was one of those kind of guidebooks. So I took the book out and I took it out of my company's 10-year anniversary. And then, so that was the first thing I started. So that was like one step into education. And I gave out quite a lot of free copies to all the artists I worked with. And then I started selling it, and that started doing okay. And then 2 years later, I realized people don't like to read. Like, so then I was like, maybe I should do like, then I started, okay, maybe I'll do some workshops. And then that workshop, like, maybe we should do a course. So then I started talking to a university, and it just kind of, I was like, I want to do this course, but I need the freedom to do it the way I want to do it. So yeah, it just kind of evolved that way. I think my courses are really, I mean, I've warned the school. I'm like, I'm not a regular professor. There will be a lot of, inappropriate things mentioned like in class. But I just teach from my experience, like whatever I know.
So I think I've lost count of the things you do, right? So you teach, you're an author, you run your own company, you have done wellness stuff now, but embedded in your company work, and then now you are working for a US based large company that has many companies underneath of it.
Yep.
How many things is that all of it, or there's other things that you're now doing?
I'm a doggy mom, and my dog's kind of sick, so I've spent a lot of time with him as well. So I basically have no life, pretty much. This is all I do.
How do
I
you
work.
decide what to add on, and how do you decide if you should say no to things?
Honestly, so I stopped management after 10 years, and it was the hardest decision I made, but it just stopped making me happy. Like, people still call me up for advice, and I still give them free advice, but it just stopped bringing me joy. And I feel like for me, it's always been about vibes, which is why the energy healing work, I just didn't know I was already doing it. So for me, it's very simple. I've always believed you got to do what you love and money will follow. Like, you shouldn't be like, oh, I've never done something because, oh, it's going to be a great business move if I personally am not going to enjoy it, you know. And I've been touched with lucky to be able to do things I like. So it's like, if I get a good vibe from the person, if I feel I would have a good time doing something, like, I still love live. Like, any opportunity to work on a large scale festival, I'll do it for free because I just love it. It's my favorite thing to do. you know but it's just I go with what makes me happy. That's it.
So I'm going to swing back to downtown music. So downtown music then is connecting with what you're doing. They're connecting Indian artists with their services and relationships.
Yeah, so it's so basically Indian artists would be able to use, say, a CD Baby or a Songtrust, and then we have a Fuga, which is for labels for their distribution. We have Downtown Music Services, which is for more high end artists or for their for companies with a large publishing catalog. So basically, depending on who the client is or who I'm talking to, say you come to me, I basically understand your needs, and then I sort of help you with all our portfolio of companies. Be like, okay, what you need is, say, a CD Baby with a Song Trust, and you can use a Found for your marketing. So sort of give you different solutions for your whatever you need.
Or
So
kind
it's
of a
sort of,
deconstructed international label.
in
Or
a
even
way, because
beyond that,
we
right?
do everything. We do everything. We have a distribution, we have a marketing company, we've got publishing. We've got everything.
It allows you to be then an international connector, which you already
Yeah.
were, but on a more
Mhm.
formalized basis.
Exactly. And what I love, which is my favorite part, is that most of our companies, whether CD Baby or Songtrust, they're very pro education. And I think that is the most important thing that we need in India, is for artists and companies and even managers to understand how the business works, because people still don't get it. So I was up till now doing lots of workshops, and then I started doing workshops under CD Baby, and now I get to do workshops under Songtrust and teach artists publishing, because nobody understands publishing in India. So it's, for me, I get to do what I love, while pushing the brands.
So, dreams you haven't fulfilled yet?
Well, I just this week signed the lease to and bought myself a house in Goa.
Cool.
So one thing off the bucket list, I bought it for my dog. I keep selling my dog. I'm like, look, I bought you a house. But I guess work-wise, I am touchwood very content. I don't know what else. I don't know what else is left to do except excel at what I'm doing right now. But maybe write another book at some point. I don't know. Maybe do like a memoirs, and I'd release it the day I die, so I can like bitch about everyone or something. But I don't know. I think maybe now my dreams besides work is more on like the family front. Like I'm alone. It'll be nice to not be alone. Getting old. But yeah, I think work wise, I'm pretty content.
And you've had lots of great adventures pulling together different threads and been able to really
Yeah.
pull it, which is really a wonderful
Yeah.
portfolio of adventures.
I mean, what I love is that it gives me like I get bored easily, in the sense of I don't want to do the same thing for the rest of my life, and I feel like with growing my company, with a studio, with a festival, with a education, and then with it being just CD Baby to now all the downtown companies, I get to learn new things, and I get to because then it keeps me excited, right? Okay, what is this? Like sometimes I'm like, oh my god, I can't understand that, but then like a month I'm like, oh, I understand it now. I know how to do this now, so it's just it keeps me going as well, because I don't want to be stuck somewhere where I'm not growing, as a person. And I feel like by pushing new companies and doing new things, I am learning and growing, and that keeps me excited.
So we've been talking for a while now, and we've covered a lot of adventures you've had. Is there anything we have not yet mentioned?
Um, I think we've pretty much done everything. I think so.
Well, I'm very glad to have connected with you through Amplify Music as well, and we'll put that in the show notes as to connecting
Yes.
some of these conversations to see what's happened during the pandemic. How would you like people to reach out to you? What do you need, and how would you like them to reach out?
Well, I mean, I think the best way someone could reach out to me would either be through my own personal company, which is called Music Gets Me High. The website is mgmh.net. Or I have an Instagram. People can send me a message and say hi. You
And
know.
we'll put both of those in the show notes. Ritnika, it was great having you on this show, and glad we could make the time zones work. I think we're
Yes,
12 and a half hours apart, and I never understand the half hour part, but it's been
that's
great
India for
having
you.
you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And the half-hour thing is just how India works. We like to be tough and difficult and a little different.
Excellent.